Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk Physical Media. I am your host, John, and this is the weekly show where we talk all things movies and everything in the world of physical media. And we like to start this show off every single week with the news, and this week we got Criterion September announcements, and man, they really knocked it out of the park with this one. They announced Greg Araki's Teen Apocalypse trilogy. Now, I have never seen this trilogy at all, and honestly, I'm not too familiar with those films, so if you guys could let me know if those films are good, because I've seen a lot of people excited about these, but I was really excited about pretty much everything else, because I'm not too familiar with these films, so let me know if those films are worth getting. They announced The Long Good Friday is going to be coming to 4K Blu-ray, which I'm not too surprised about that. Arrow Video had actually just recently released this movie a couple months ago, so I kind of expected it to come to 4K Blu-ray. I didn't expect it to come to 4K Blu-ray here from the Criterion Collection. That was actually pretty surprising. I'm really excited about that. Me and David, aka Shamrock Balls, my co-host of the Let's Talk podcast, we actually did a full breakdown of that movie this past Good Friday, so check that one out, and I am definitely going to be picking that one up because I love that movie. I only saw it for the first time this year, but I've already watched it twice this year, and I'll have no problem watching it for a third time. And they also announced the movie Happiness, which is a movie I've never seen because it's a really hard movie to get a hold of, even the stream, because the movie itself is very controversial. Now, I can't say exactly for sure because I have never seen the movie, but from what I've heard and what that subject matter is, I've heard that it's very controversial, and I can understand why that movie's kind of hard to find, but it definitely is the kind of movie that Criterion would release, and I'm definitely going to check that one out, so that's a day one purchase for me as well. And they announced that Repo Man is going to be coming to 4K Blu-ray. They had already previously released this on Blu-ray. I actually own that Blu-ray, and I really love Repo Man. That movie stars Emilio Estevez. It's a very 80s punk movie. It also has this alien invasion storyline tied in, very low, but it also feels very low-key, very low budget. It doesn't feel like a very big movie, and I really love that movie for it. I've only seen it once, but I bought it a couple years ago on Blu-ray through a Criterion sale, so I'll probably be picking this one up at full price, and I expect it to have the same exact case design that we have with that previously released Blu-ray. And last but not least is All of Us Strangers, and funny story about this movie, this just came out last year, and when I read the premise for this movie, I really wanted to see it, and it never played in theaters by me, so I never got to see it until eventually it showed up on Hulu. So I watched it on Hulu a couple months ago, and I really liked it. It wasn't the greatest film, but it definitely stuck with me, and it was a film that I actually wanted to go back to, so I'm probably going to pick this one up. I don't know if it'll be a day one purchase because I did watch it a couple months ago, but I am in the mood to rewatch it. It has a very fascinating story. For anyone who doesn't know about this movie, it's basically about two guys. They are the first people to show up. I guess it's a new apartment building. It seems like a hotel, but it's their apartment building. They're the first two people to show up, so they live there alone. One night, one of the guys knocks on the other guy's door. One of them is a writer, and one guy's drunk who knocks on his door, and the other guy knows it. He kind of hits on him a little bit. He kind of sends him on his way, nothing. And then they eventually develop a little bit of a friendship that could turn into a little bit more. Also, this one character, he goes to his old family home only to find that his parents are there, essentially as ghosts because they passed away sometime in the 1980s. So the last time he saw them, he was a child. So this is like unfamiliar territory. And, you spend a lot of time trying to figure out exactly how this is happening and what the rules are. If you could just take yourself out of that and just kind of let the movie flow over you, I think you'll get more out of it. And that's kind of how I felt the first time I watched it. I was just trying to figure the movie out, and then it kind of stuck with me after, where I kind of got more involved in the emotional stuff of the movie, because a lot of people said this movie was a tearjerker, and it didn't get me, and I really wanted it to, so maybe on second viewing I'll actually get to appreciate this movie a little bit more. So Criterion really gave us a stacked September, and I did not expect that, especially coming off the summer, which really has so many great releases. So man, we've been getting spoiled this year with 4K Blu-rays. And the only other bit of news that I was really excited about is that Second Sight is going to be releasing on 4K Blu-ray You're Next, which I saw only one time, and that was back in theaters. I don't remember what year this came out, but I remember specifically seeing this movie in theaters, and I thought it was fantastic, and I don't know why I never went back to it. So maybe I'll pick up the Second Sight 4K Blu-ray. I actually don't own any Second Sight collector's editions. I always just buy the region-free 4K Blu-ray, the cheaper version. I have It Follows and High Tension on that. And honestly, I've been dying to review It Follows on 4K Blu-ray. So if you guys would like a review of that, let me know, and I'll put it on the schedule, even though we're very backed up here on the channel. Actually, this upcoming week, I'm going to combine my 4K Blu-ray reviews for the Criterion release of Bound and for the 4K Blu-ray review of American Gigolo from Arrow Video. I'm going to put those into one review review and maybe even review The Bike Riders, which is a movie I just saw by Jeff Nichols. That was pretty good. I expected it to be a little bit better, especially with that cast, but, you know, it was still a pretty good movie. We'll talk about that later in the week as well. So there was really not that much news this week, but what we did get announced was really exciting. So what do you guys think of Criterion's releases for September? Let me know in the comment section below. And are you guys excited for your next to be coming to 4K Blu-ray from Second Sight? Same thing, just let me know in the comment section below. And I won't waste any more of your time. We're going to get right into the Q&A portion of this week's show. All right, and the first question this week is from 021 OM6, and a buddy of mine. He wrote, if you had to convince somebody to start collecting 4K Blu-rays, what would be your top 10 4K Blu-rays you believe would convince them to start collecting physical media? And this is a great question, and I kind of took this a little bit differently. I picked 10 movies that I would want to show somebody and give them a specific reason and why collecting physical media is always better than streaming movies all of the time. So I got my movies right here. That's what all of these are. And the first one is Top Gun Maverick. I said this was the best 4K Blu-ray of 2022. It's a reference quality 4K Blu-ray, and a lot of people went and saw Top Gun Maverick. So if you ever want to convince somebody of a movie that they should see, it's a movie like this that they probably already saw only in movie theaters, and then they probably have only streamed it since. You bring them in your house and you show them Top Gun Maverick on 4K Blu-ray, and you're like, check this one out, and just look how it feels and sounds like it did in the movie theaters. You got to explain to them, like, you need the TV and you need the surround sound as well. Show them that because of this disc, they are able to actually bring that movie theater experience home. And, you know, maybe you got the steelbook and they'll be like, oh, this is really shiny too, and be like, hey, that's on your shelf. You pull it off every couple of weeks, you look at it and you go, that's mine. They can't take that from me. Unless someone robs your house, because then they can just take what they want. And I'm cheating a little bit here, but you're going to want to show them both Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I went back and forth with Wall-E, but that's a Criterion 4K Blu-ray release, and, you know, there's other Criterion releases we need to talk about, and I feel like these are still some of the best animated films that I have ever seen, some of the greatest looking, and the movies themselves are just worth owning anyway because they are so well done. And of course, we're still waiting for that sequel, which will be Beyond the Spider-Verse, but if you're going to show them an animated movie, you can't go wrong with either Into the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse. And just because I'm being a little bit biased, I'm going to show them Point Break, and hopefully I have that previously released Blu-ray to show them the big jump from that Blu-ray to 4K Blu-ray, because it's not the greatest transfer. But if you could get your hands on this beautiful piece of art, this steelbook right here, which I've said it time and time again is my favorite 4K Blu-ray steelbook of all time, released by the Shout Factory. The artist actually follows this channel. I wish I knew the name offhand. I'm sorry, but they did such a good job on this steelbook, and I just absolutely love Point Break, so you're going to want to own that anyway. And then right here, you're going to want to show them Terminator 2 on 4K Blu-ray to show them what you're not supposed to do with the 4K Blu-ray format, and show them what an example of a bad 4K Blu-ray is. And because I think Terminator 2 is probably the worst of the worst when it comes to DNR, and, you know, really fumbling the ball on one of the greatest films of all time, where you go, you know, even getting the 4K Blu-ray isn't worth it. You're probably going to want to go back and get the Blu-ray, get maybe the Skynet edition. Maybe that's the route you want to go, because these 4K Blu-rays are what you're not supposed to do. And then, of course, you're going to want to show them the 2023 Best Picture winner, aren't you? So you're going to whip out Oppenheimer on 4K Blu-ray. This 4K Blu-ray from Universal is just absolutely incredible. I said this was the 4K Blu-ray of the year last year. Of course, it was the film of the year. So you're going to want to show them Oppenheimer. You might want to show them a boutique label, right? So you're going to probably want to show them what one of your favorite boutique labels is. My favorite boutique label happens to be the Criterion Collection, and one of my favorite releases from them is, of course, one of my favorite biographical films of all time. It is actually my favorite biographical film of all time, directed by Spike Lee, 1992's Malcolm X. You can show them this great packaging as well. You know, just simple digibook. When Criterion does this, they don't have to ever go further because it's perfectly done right here. But you're going to want to show them this movie because A, it's a 10 out of 10 movie, and the 4K Blu-ray is almost perfect, but if you're a fan of Malcolm X, you got to show somebody Malcolm X on 4K Blu-ray, and thankfully the Criterion Collection gave us that. Hey, another movie from 1992, and another movie that got a big upgrade to 4K Blu-ray, and also has one of these Lionsgate steelbook with the nice slipcover over it. Honestly, I remember when they announced this slipcover, I was like, I don't think I like that. It really grew on me, and a lot of that has to do with, I'll just show you guys. I absolutely love the individual disc design for this. Fantastic stuff. So, wanted to show you guys that, but it is a big upgrade, Reservoir Dogs, and Quentin Tarantino, my favorite director of all time. Love what they did with this 4K Blu-ray. Next up, Predator. And the reason why, like, this isn't the greatest 4K Blu-ray of all time, but if people remember the Blu-ray was one of the worst Blu-rays of all time. So this is a massive, it might even be the biggest upgrade from Blu-ray to 4K Blu-ray. So that's something to show somebody, hey, you want to see what we can do with this technology when it's done right? Look at this Blu-ray. Look how horrible and ugly it is. Well, this 4K Blu-ray, man, has the Predator ever looked so pretty?
You one ugly motherfucker.
Of course, you're going to want to show them a superhero movie, and unfortunately, Disney has released a lot of superhero movies on 4K Blu-ray, and they're not all great. And, you know, of course, other comic book films like The Dark Knight Rises, that's a great 4K Blu-ray as well. Whereas I feel like Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, they have issues. The Joker is a great 4K Blu-ray. The Batman's a great 4K Blu-ray. But I really think either Logan or Blade is the coup de grace of superhero or comic book films on 4K Blu-ray. This is a Warner Brothers release. And, you know, yes, it's a 1998 film, so you could argue, you know, maybe some other movies from recent times look better. But, you know, the great design of this film, and yeah, it has some bad CGI in it, very cheesy late 90s CGI that the 4K Blu-ray is only going to make look worse, but I do think Blade is a great 4K Blu-ray, and if you're going to show someone a comic book film, why not show them Blade? And then, of course, you're going to want to show them a trilogy of movies, and I said this many times, reference quality discs here for the Lord of the Rings trilogy on 4K Blu-ray. Yes, we got shafted on the extras, but still, people love the Lord of the Rings movies, and they did such a good job. This is what you're supposed to do. Don't fumble the ball when you have a franchise like this that's so beloved by so many people, and thank God they did. And these 4K Blu-rays are amazing, and you get the regular theatrical cuts and the extended cuts on 4K Blu-ray, so you cannot go wrong with the Lord of the Rings movies. So that was a great question, buddy. I really appreciate that. Honestly, I put a lot of thought into it, but let me know your list in the comment section below of what you think the top 10 movies on 4K Blu-ray you have to show somebody to try and convince them to collect physical media. And the next question is from my buddy Sexy Monkey, and he wrote, what was the film which made you become aware of cinematography beyond just capturing scenes on film, but the beauty involved, use of shadow and light, composition? What's off screen is as what's important as what's on screen. For me, it was the film Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. The odd, unnatural, old-timey color palette, use of widescreen, composition, and how that makes a noticeable difference. So I've told you guys a million times probably that the movie that really got me into, you know, how films are made was the movie Pulp Fiction, that non-linear storytelling, but I was really captured more by the storytelling than the actual cinematography of that movie. It wouldn't be for years until I caught on that movie was really paying homage to like 1970s movies. Like, watch that movie and then watch Dawn of the Dead and look at the set design and, like, you know, the old dirty apartment buildings. You know, if you look at that and then look at the movie Pulp Fiction, you could definitely see the inspiration of 1970s films on Pulp Fiction. That's why that movie, despite coming out in 1994, will feel like a 1970s movie. But the movie that really made me pay attention to cinematography was the movie Casino. This film came out in 1995. It always gets compared to Goodfellas. I didn't actually catch up to this movie till I was 14 years old. I was actually babysitting my younger brothers and sisters. I'm the oldest of my family, and I have siblings that are like 10 years younger than me, so they trusted me to watch the kids that night. And that night, I was just looking for something to watch, and on HBO, Casino had just started. So I put it on, and I absolutely fell in love with the movie, of course, because it is very similar to Goodfellas. I love Goodfellas. You know, we have some actors overlap playing similar roles. I'm looking at you, Joe Pesci, who just knocks it out of the park in that movie as well. But what really caught my eye, and I think of this image all the time, and it's really hard to find a clip to show you guys this, or even a picture, but it's this just white highlighted light that shows up around a Cadillac at an airport. Like, this image alone just... it blew my mind when I saw it. I was like, that's absolutely beautiful. And when you look up the cinematographer, Robert Richardson, he's worked with Martin Scorsese in the past, but he's also worked with Quentin Tarantino on movies like Django Unchained, and he's worked on movies like Born on the 4th of July, I believe, and Platoon. So he's worked with so many great directors. And, you know, he does have a distinct look, that highlight look that I was telling you about for Casino. You know, that's what caught my eye. And then also, you know, when they're in Kansas City, the beautiful snow shots. We're talking about Las Vegas and how beautiful that looks. So I was starting to pay attention to all the shots in this movie. You know, even though I saw Goodfellas before this, and I should have been paying attention to the beautiful wonder that's in that movie, it really wasn't until we got to Casino. And Casino was the movie that finally made me start falling in love with cinematography. And honestly, cinematography is the thing that I always look for in a movie. That's one of the things I'm always paying attention to, is how the shots are done, the beauty of the lighting. That's the stuff that really keeps bringing me back. I think that's tied into the 4K Blu-ray format as it is, because now these movies have never looked better, so you can really appreciate the lighting even more. Like, I'm watching American Gigolo last night, and that movie, like, just looks so gorgeous, and thanks to the 4K Blu-ray format, we're able to really truly appreciate that beauty, even with Blu-rays. I don't want to sell Blu-rays short either, because those old 1080p Blu-rays, they can really pump out some beautiful looking films as well. So that was a great question, Sexy Monkey. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, buddy. And the next question is from the Blu-ray Collector 18. What is your most anticipated Blu-ray of the summer? Mine would be Twisters on next month. Yep, Twisters coming to 4K Blu-ray July 9th, and that is really anticipated by me, but that is actually not my answer. Purple Rain comes out this week. That's one of my most anticipated 4K Blu-rays. Another one would probably be in July, at the very end of July. You guys know how much I love Tom Cruise. Well, the Criterion Collection is going to be giving us Risky Business on 4K Blu-ray. We've gotten a lot of Tom Cruise movies on 4K Blu-ray. Risky Business is really probably the one that started it all for him, or at least made him almost an A-list actor. You know, obviously a few years later, he took the bigger jump with Top Gun, but he was on everyone's radar when Risky Business came out, and I absolutely love Tom Cruise, so obviously I can't wait for Risky Business. That's a pretty big deal. Also, we're going to get the last two Bill and Ted movies in the beginning of August. I'm really excited about those. I'm a big Kino Lorber fan, and the last week of July, I believe we're getting both In and Out, the Kevin Kline movie, and No Way Out on 4K Blu-ray. I love both of those movies. I'm really excited about that, and Kino Lorber is going to be giving us both of those films on 4K Blu-ray. So yeah, there's a lot of movies coming out this summer. That's what I was saying about the Criterion Collection in September. We've really gotten very, very spoiled this year. Some of my favorite films of all time have come out this year, and I know I say of all time a lot here on the channel, but man, there's so many great movies out there, and we've just been getting spoiled this year, and I'm loving it. I mean, my wallet doesn't, my bank account absolutely hates me, but whatever. I got so many great movies on 4K Blu-ray. You know what? We're eating good in the neighborhood, guys. So I would definitely, yeah, I guess if I had to just pick one, I'm gonna have to say Purple Rain. I love Purple Rain.
Why don't you purify yourself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka? Good.
And the next one is from our buddy Sprazy110. He wrote, what's your favorite boutique label sale of the year? P.S. Mine is either one of the two July Barnes & Noble sales, and July can't come soon enough. Yeah, those would be my picks too. Obviously, I save up a lot of money for the July sales. That's the best way to buy any Criterion release. Criterion releases are very, very expensive. So if you can get them 50% off, you're definitely stealing them. So we're getting real close to July. I already got my list picked out. Fate's going to be so pissed off at me, but it'll be all worth it. But one of my favorite sales, and probably is my favorite sale of the year, other than the Barnes & Noble sale, is the Shocktober sale from Shout and Scream Factory. That's when most of their stuff goes to 50% off. So all the stuff I don't buy throughout the year because I just like, you know what? It's not worth it at full price. I don't love that movie. I don't need it right now. That stuff I always just, you know, I keep a list and I end up picking it up in October when the Shocktober sale comes around. So I got my list already building for this year. I'm still making some decisions about some movies that do I want it, do I not? I'm not entirely sure, but you know what? When Shocktober rolls around, I'll be picking up a lot of those movies on sale. So those are always my favorite ones of the year. You know, we get a bunch of Kino Lorber sales throughout the year, some smaller Criterion sales, but anytime you can get 50% off, that's always a steal. If you can get more than that, you know, sometimes you'll see movies just drop in price randomly, like on Amazon. I don't really count that as sales. You know, big time ones where they're like promoting it. Yeah, those Criterion Barnes & Noble sales are great. And then, of course, the Shocktober sale. That was a great question, Sprazy. Thanks. And the next question is from our producer, Mr. Smelly Potato. And he said, pretend the roles for the following movies had to be recast because the actor was unavailable, but you're hired to find their replacement. Who would you hire? So, just a little caveat going into this question. The way I did this was I was picking an actor that was around that time when the movie came out, not necessarily an actor working today. So, the first one is Bruce Willis from The Fifth Element, which I believe came out in 1997. So, I was trying to pick an actor who, you know, in 1997 could replace Bruce Willis, like kind of fill out the role similarly to how he would play it. And I actually had a really hard time with this. I couldn't think of anyone who could play the role the same way that Bruce Willis plays this role. He's fantastic in The Fifth Element. You know, The Fifth Element, I actually just picked up the Studio Canal 4K Blu-ray. I should have brought it in here to show you guys. As you guys might know, there's two 4K Blu-rays for The Fifth Element. There's a Sony release, and then there's a Studio Canal release. And from what I've heard, the Studio Canal release is much, much better, and I trust the people who've told me that. The original Fuzz and Frank from Frank's Media Reviews, trust them more than many people out there, so I know they won't steer me wrong, so I grabbed that one recently, and I can't wait to check it out. But who do I replace him with? The only person I could actually think of was Will Smith, who can bring that kind of energy and charm that Bruce Willis has in this movie. You know, he's not as much rough-edged as Bruce Willis, but it's the only other actor I could think of around that time. You know, maybe Kevin Kline, but I think he would just be... I don't think that would work either. Charlie Sheen, I guess, could maybe work, but again, I don't know. I really had a hard time with figuring out who I had to replace Bruce Willis with. The next one is much easier. Keanu Reeves, The Matrix, that would be Will Smith. Will Smith actually turned down that role to do Wild Wild West, which I don't hate Wild Wild West. Is it a bad movie? Maybe, but, you know, I haven't seen it in a very long time, but I used to watch that movie on VHS a lot, and I have it almost memorized, and I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing, but I got a soft spot in my heart for Wild Wild West.
When I roll into the Wild Wild West, when I stroll into the Wild Wild West, when I bounce into...
I also don't think I can see him in that role. It's weird, but you know what? He's Will Smith. I think he could do it. Vin Diesel, Pitch Black. This is really tough because I want to say The Rock, but The Rock in 2000... What year did Pitch Black come out? Was it the late 90s, early 2000s? I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head. But anyway, I'm trying to think of an actor who could replace Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel is not one of the greatest actors, but he's not asked to do a ton of acting in this movie. You know, he does a great job for what Pitch Black is. And for whatever role he's in, he does a fine job. He's just, you know, he loves family. That's the thing about Vin Diesel. This is another one. These are very hard. I'm very bad at recasting. Like, I would never be somebody involved in casting. I can never, like, just imagine somebody else in the role. You know, I always see what's presented to me, and I'm like, wow, that's perfect. That's why you have casting directors out there. They can picture the smallest roles and find the perfect actor for it. You know, a lot of people will compliment the Coen brothers for never wasting a role. The smallest role will always have a great actor in it. Think of the guy in the gas station in No Country for Old Men. You might not think of that guy as a good actor, but he plays his role perfectly. So you got to credit the Coen brothers for doing that. So I think I'm going to pass on this one. I don't know. I really can't think of anyone. Christopher Lloyd in Back to the Future. I actually was thinking Michael Keaton. In 1985, Michael Keaton was a comedic actor mostly. It wouldn't be for a few more years with 1989's Batman where people took him a little bit more seriously. But in the 80s, he was a very big comedic actor. And, you know, Christopher Lloyd, yeah, he was in his 50s here. And Michael Keaton, I think, is in his 30s. But, you know, they age him up, obviously, and then they age him down for the 1950s scene. So I can see them doing that for Michael Keaton. You can dye his hair white if you want to go that route. So I definitely can picture Michael Keaton doing this role, especially in the 80s. Sylvester Stallone for First Blood. This is another one that's actually very tough because, you know, the standard thing would be to say Arnold Schwarzenegger, but Arnold Schwarzenegger could not do First Blood. As much as I love Arnold Schwarzenegger, like I've said before, he's my hero, but still... I don't think he has the acting chops to pull off the dramatic nature that is First Blood, because that is not an action movie first. That is a drama first. There's plenty of videos on this channel of us talking about First Blood, so I won't go too far into it. So who do I think could replace him? I actually was thinking Richard Gere. Richard Gere definitely has the body for it, and he's a great actor. You know, this would definitely be a different role that you've seen from Richard Gere. Richard Gere always plays more of a upper class kind of role, but I think he could do it. I really do. I think, you know, he can definitely, if you dirty him up, and, you know, I think he can pull off the dramatic scenes very, very well. It's not an over-the-top action movie, so I think Richard Gere would definitely slide in there, especially in 1980, same year as American Gigolo. He looked great in that, so I think he could pull it off. Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Terminator. O.J. Simpson. No, I'm just kidding. Never. But, you know, who replaces Arnold? Like, is there anyone out there? There's no one out there that has the physique of Arnold that could replace him, so maybe you go with the original way that they imagine it, like Lance Henriksen. I think Lance Henriksen kind of got the shaft. Like, that was the original idea, was to have a regular guy. And, you know, he helped that movie pretty much get made because he was buddies with James Cameron. And he actually dressed up as the Terminator to scare the studio executives to try and actually get the movie made. So that's always a pretty funny story. So it'd be cool to see, like, Lance Henriksen in that role. I think, you know, he could have pulled it off. It would have been different, but that was the original idea. It was supposed to be a regular guy who could blend in. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger just ended up being the perfect guy for the role, but originally that wasn't the idea. Harrison Ford, Raiders of the Lost Ark, another one where actually he wasn't supposed to be the actor. Harrison Ford was not the original choice. That was Tom Selleck, and honestly I always wanted to see Tom Selleck in the role. I thought he would have done a good job for it. It's a shame he was attached to Magnum PI and they wouldn't let him out of his contract to go do this movie. given I love the Indiana Jones movies. I think they're perfect films. The first 3 movies, that is. We'll talk about the other 2 later, but if you just ignore them, the first 3 movies are perfect films, and honestly, Harrison Ford is perfect. But, in a different universe, Magnum P.I., he was allowed to be in those movies, and he got out of his contract, and we would have actually got Tom Selleck. I wonder if he would have kept the mustache. Would have been different movies for sure with that, but Tom Selleck without his mustache always looks strange to me. Watch the movie In and Out, you'll see what I mean. But that was a great question. I really do appreciate that, buddy. And another question from Sprazy110 is, how do you organize movies in a franchise if different movies are released by different boutique labels? Actually, this drives me nuts, but I don't like to let certain boutique labels separate from each other, so the Criterion Collection, no matter what, all my Criterion releases stay together, no matter who the director is, and that's very annoying with directors like Martin Scorsese. So Martin Scorsese is all over the place when it comes to how my collection is set up, because he's got releases from Arrow Video, he's got releases from Criterion Collection, then he's got just regular old-fashioned Warner Brothers releases. So his releases are all over the place. If they weren't released by a boutique label like Criterion Collection or Arrow Video, they're just on their own together. So like all of Martin Scorsese's movies have like a subsection, except for the ones that are in the Arrow Video collection or in my Criterion collection, if that makes any sense. Yes, I kind of can visualize my entire collection in my head, so I kind of just organize it like that, if that makes any sense. I know it's a little bit strange, but my collection is kind of set up like this. My top shelf kind of has my Kino Lorber releases and some sub-director releases, so like all the, or like franchise releases, so all the James Bond movies that are together, all of my David Fincher movies that are together, unless they're released by like the Criterion Collection. So like The Game is in my Criterion section on my shelf, which has its own shelf, so all of my Criterion movies are together, and so are all of my Kino Lorber and most of my Arrow Video ones. I even make some exceptions for that. So my collection is kind of set up, just really personally how I want to set it up. Everything that was just kind of released by a studio, though, is in subsections as well, separated by genre. So I have drama, horror, action, sci-fi, kind of how it used to be back in the video store days. But I do like to keep my Criterion and my Kino Lorber and most of my Arrow stuff together, because I like how uniform they release them. That's why I don't get too upset about Kino Lorber and their very plain design. I actually like being able to find my Kino Lorber section just by looking at the shelf and be like, oh, there they are, black and white Kino Lorber cases. I don't mind that at all. Obviously, I appreciate, more over-the-top designs, but I don't get too upset about what Kino Lorber does either. It's really just the Kino Lorber thing. I appreciate that from them. So that was another great question, Sprazy110. Thank you so much. And the next one is from Dark Room Reviews, and he has a great YouTube channel as well. Make sure you guys go check him out, subscribe to him. He's a great guy, so definitely subscribe to his YouTube channel. I know he's trying to grow right now. I don't think you guys will be too upset if you go over there. Give him a subscribe and check out his videos. And he asked, what's the rarest piece of cinema you own? And, honestly, I don't really have too much stuff. I actually went through it, and I was trying to think what would be the rarest thing in my collection, but all the stuff that I have isn't too rare, other than like the Columbia Classics Volume 1, I guess, because that's out of print. And I have a Memento Steelbook, but that, again, they just released a brand new Steelbook for it, so mine was a Canadian release from a long time ago. I mean, I don't know why they haven't given us Memento on 4K Blu-ray. That's really weird, but I actually don't have too much in my collection that is too expensive. One of my favorite things that's not related to my physical media was actually a gift from Kevin Kruger. He sent me the Terminator script, like one of the final drafts. It is the final draft of the script. He actually sent that to me last year as a Christmas gift. That's like one of the things I cherish most. I absolutely love the script for the Terminator as my favorite film of all time, and Kevin Kruger actually sent that to me, so I always appreciate that. So it's not rare. I mean, I guess everyone can probably obviously there's only so many of those actual scripts floating around, but that I have always cherished. But yeah, I mean, just some of my collection stuff that's like out of print at this point. Other than that, there's not like something that you like dust off and like, yeah, this is worth some money. Unfortunately, I don't have anything like that. I wish I did, I guess, but I'm not one of those people that's like an eBay hunter. I just don't have that much expendable cash, so most of my money just goes into movies that I'm going to review here on the channel. So it is what it is, but yeah, there's not too much in there that's too expensive. But that was a great question. I really do appreciate that. And before we get out of here today, I'm going to do one Kevin Kruger question, and he actually said, what is the most underrated comedy from the 90s? And this actually might surprise some people. I've always thought about this. There's actually 2 Adam Sandler movies that I don't think get enough love. That's Airheads and Bulletproof. And Bulletproof was actually directed by Ernest Dickerson, who directed the movie Juice. And, he was also the cinematographer with Spike Lee from pretty much all of his movies through Malcolm X. And Malcolm X is a beautiful looking movie, and so is Do the Right Thing. But Ernest Dickerson directed Bulletproof, which stars Adam Sandler and Damon Wayans. Damon Wayans has always been my favorite Wayans brother. I know a lot of people. My wife Faith thinks that Marlon Wayans is the funniest of them, but I've always been a Damon Wayans guy. Even when he had My Wife and Kids, you go all the way back to the In Living Color days, and then anytime he pops up in movies, I just always loved Damon Wayans. And I thought him and Adam Sandler had good chemistry. A lot of people said this movie's horrible, but I've watched Bulletproof a few times, and I've always thought the movie's pretty damn funny. So I would say that's the most underrated comedy of the 1990s. But another Adam Sandler comedy, and this is like before he really like hit his stride, and like I think 1996 with Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison. That's where like the movie star career of Adam Sandler really took off. But before that, we had Airheads. Airheads is a really funny movie as well. Guy actually came into my job today. It looked like Adam Sandler from Airheads. It's pretty damn funny. Not as good looking, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, that's a great question, Kevin Kruger. Thank you so much, buddy, and I really appreciate that. And thank you, everybody who sent in questions for this week's episode of Let's Talk Physical Media. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could. Leave your questions for next week's show in the comments section below, or you could always just wait for the post that I'll put out on Wednesday. We also have channel memberships if you want to try and help support this channel financially so we can keep giving you this great show, 4K Blu-ray reviews. You know, I would really appreciate that. But again, no pressure at all. If you got no money to throw away, we don't mind at all. But we do have a friends of the channel tier, a producers tier where you're going to find John Doe Juggalo, Jason Martin, and Mr. Smelly Potato. And we also have a director's tier where you're going to find Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews. Again, make sure you head over to Frank's YouTube channel. He is a great guy who does some fantastic videos. He's also my co-host for Collector's Corner. So make sure you guys head over to his channel and head over to John Doe Juggalo's YouTube channel as well. He's another great guy. Great friend of the channel. Even though he's not on the producers tier, he's still a great guy, great friend. So head over to their YouTube channels as well. Check out all the other YouTube channels like Stuart George's Home Movies, who just passed 500 subscribers. Make sure you check out the Original Fuzz. He has a great YouTube channel as well. And man, he really knows his stuff. And I promise you guys, I'm sure you guys already are subscribed to him. You will not be disappointed by that. And I know I'm leaving some people off the top of my head, and I'm sorry. But you know what? Just check out anyone in the physical media space. You know, they're doing great work, and for the most part, they're all great people. So definitely check them out. And you know what? After you're done doing all that, if you enjoyed this video, get out in those streets and tell your friends about us. And then we'll be seeing you around.